In this lesson, we'll learn how to set up our hot and cold water supply systems. All right, so now that we have our fixtures in place, we're at a point now where we can start building out our supply systems. So what that entails is basically letting Revit know which one of my elements here is a fixture and which one of these elements is an actual piece of equipment that has a special function other than just a fixture. And we know that that particular piece of equipment is going to be our water heater. So really quickly, I'm going to jump to my basement and I'm going to click on my water heater here. And now that we're going to start working with some pipes, let's double check our alignment for this water heater. So when I look down here, I notice a couple of things. You'll notice this is very common on all of our fixtures with connections. So you'll see I have hot water connection here, which looks like a small drain with red. And here's our cold water, which looks like a small drain with blue, showing cold water. But we also have our drains here as well. And this lets me know the size, that it's output, and this is a drain. And I know that my drains pretty much on each floor are going to be lined up on this side of our model. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that my hot water heater is oriented in a way that reflects that. So I'm simply going to rotate him to where our drains here are on the back so they can connect easily to our drains that are going to be going out to the main drain for the sewage system. You'll also notice another thing here, when looking in this view, the lines are really thick. Occasionally I like to bounce around between thick and thin lines. It depends on what I'm doing and what my task is. So if I wanted to make that change to my view, I could type in TL and you'll see my lines automatically thin out. This helps with a little bit of accuracy. But so for now, I'm just going to keep it in this view. But going back to 3D view, I can see now we're ready to set up a system. So to do that, the first thing I want to do is I want to set or click on a fixture, and we'll click on our washer and dryer system here on the bottom. So I'm simply going to click on that. And once I have that selected, I'm going to click my piping button. And the next thing that comes up is a window, and it basically allows me to tell Revit what type of a system am I setting up. So we have a couple of different systems. So when I go to my drop down, we have a sanitary system, hot water, and cold water domestic systems, and even an other. So we'll figure out how to do these first three. And we'll begin with our hot water system here. So I'm simply going to select that from the drop down, and that name will be copied here with a 1 right after it. So I'm simply going to click OK. Now that I have that one item selected within my entire system, because remember, this hot water heater is going to be supplying hot water to all of my fixtures here, or most of them except the toilet. So we need to make sure we let Revit know all the details of this system. So I have this selected. Now let's edit system. And what I want to do now here in my top is click on add to the system. And what this is going to allow me to do is add fixtures to the system. So anything that's going to need hot water, I need to select it in my model. So I can orbit around here in my 3D view. Now we know that we're not going to have hot water in the toilet, so I'm not going to highlight that, but we are going to highlight our sink, our bathtub, and our kitchen area here. And those three things are in addition to what we have already selected there. So once we have all our fixtures selected, we can now click on select equipment. And now we could select on our equipment, which in our case is our hot water heater. And now I can finish out the system. And what that did is highlighted everything in red, and I know that everything in red is going to be associated with my hot water system. And you can see here that the toilet system isn't even highlighted in that red because there's no hot water supplying it. So now what I can do is I can click on my equipment, and I will click on generate layout. And I'm going to let Revit do some thinking for me. This is going to save me a ton of time. So generate a layout, and usually Revit is smart enough to generate several layouts, so you're not limited to just one layout. So you have some flexibility. And you can also edit that layout as well, and I'll show you how we can go about doing that. But you'll see now we are presented with a couple of different layouts. And what we have here is this blue, which is our cold water supply, and it's providing water to all these copper pipes that are going into our fixtures here. Now, the goal in any construction project is efficiency, save money where you can, and don't waste. So we don't want to get a system that's really complicated with a lot of twists, bends, and don't want to have to spend that extra money on copper and labor getting this thing set up. So we're going to go with a really simple, efficient system. And luckily, Revit's given me several options. So now, right here, underneath solution type, we've got several to choose from. Perimeter, intersections, and network. I know that mine's going to be a network, which basically means I have one pipe, and it's going to be feeding off to several different elements. But I don't like this one because it looks like it's going to be a lot of extra copper. So let's use this next solution button. Let's see what else Revit has for us. Looks like there might be a lot of cramping in there, and might make maintenance later on working on this line a little different. So I'm just going to keep clicking until I find something that looks efficient enough for me. And I like the way this looks. Not a lot of copper, not a lot of twists and bends and connections. So I'm going to say, well, before I say finish layout, I can come to settings and I can adjust the branches and also the main here. And I'll show you how in handy this will come here in just a second. So we're not worried about that right now. So we'll go ahead and place finish layout. And what Revit will do is it'll model out our hot water supply. And you can see a nice three-dimensional model with all our connection pieces. I can click on this, and in our properties, this will tell you exactly what's going on with my pipe. So I know that this is domestic hot water. It's a copper pipe. It's an inch thick. And if I wanted to change any of these parameters, I can. But this is pretty common here, so I'm not going to do any extra work if I don't need to. So now let's take the same approach, and let's get our water system or our cold water system in place. But we're going to tweak a couple of parameters with that just to make sure our system's looking efficient. So we're going to take the same approach. So again, I'm going to click on my washer and dryer. We're going to go with piping. And this time, we're going to go with the domestic cold water system. I'm going to click OK here. And again, we're going to edit this system. And we're going to only select the fixtures that are going to get cold water, which is basically every fixture in here. So we'll get our toilet, sink, bathtub, takes care of our bathroom. We'll jump down here to our kitchen. It'll take care of our kitchen setup here. And we're not worried about clicking on this because we already initiated it by clicking on that. So now we're going to select equipment. We'll let Revit know that this hot water heater is also going to supply us with our cold water. I'm going to finish that system. And I can now click on any one of these. I'll click on our equipment here, and I'm going to ask Revit to generate a nice layout for us. And again, this is our cold water system. We already set up the hot water system, so make sure we select cold water system. And again, we have several layouts here. And same thing in mind, same goals. Don't need to use more copper and labor than we need to. So a lot of these layouts are going to have a lot of twists and bends in them. So I'm simply going to use this to check out my layout and look for something that's really efficient. And it will probably be the very last one here. Now, it's laid out very similar to what we did with the hot water. And so I don't get my lines tangled up. Here's where we can make some adjustments to our settings. So I like this layout. And again, it's the network layout, and it's the last one. So it's very similar to what we did with the hot water. So I'm going to change my branch height and my main height. That way, the lines don't get tangled. And if there is maintenance that needs to happen later on, we can adjust those problems a lot easier than working with a big bunch of pipes and lines. So we'll go with our main here. And I want to adjust the main's offset, we'll say, to 8 feet. And I'll click OK. And you'll notice on the cold water, my main here dropped 1 foot. So let's go back to that again. And now we're going to change the branch setting from 9 feet to 8 feet. And I'll click OK. And what that did is gave us some really nice space in between our hot and cold water systems, giving us a really nice clean layout and easy to access and maintain later on if we need to. So now that I'm happy with what we have here, I'm simply going to click Finish Layout, and we now have our pipes in place for our cold water. So we've just quickly and efficiently modeled out our hot and cold water systems. So in the next lesson, we'll start tackling how to model some stacks and drains. So I'll see you in the next lesson.